Well, you've thought it through. You have weighed the options. You've made your decision and you've committed to a particular path. And then something happens that makes all your careful planning irrelevant. The job disappears, the diagnosis arrives, the relationship ends. The person that you counted on is suddenly gone. In moments like those, you discover something unsettling. You weren't just following a plan. You were trusting in one. And when the plan collapses, something in you collapses too. You find yourself asking questions that maybe you're not sure that you want answered. Can you trust anything anymore? Is it worth believing in something only to watch it fall apart? The disciples knew this feeling. They had left everything to follow Jesus. They believed that he was the Messiah, the one who would change everything. And then came the cross. And suddenly, 3 years of hope, 3 years of risk, 3 years of believing, all of it seemed like a cruel joke. Now, most of them were together when Jesus appeared alive, but Thomas wasn't there. He missed it. And when his friends told him what happened, Thomas couldn't afford to believe them. He'd already had his heart broken once. Today, we're beginning a new series called Fresh Start, When Life Takes an Unexpected Turn. Over the next 7 weeks, we'll meet people whose plans got interrupted, redirected, or in some cases, completely shattered. And who discovered that detours can lead somewhere better than the original destination. Today we start with the story of Thomas, because fresh starts often begin in the most unlikely place, with honest doubt and a God patient enough to meet us right there. His story shows us what happens when something better walks through the locked door. Sometimes, though, the bravest thing a person can do is to draw a line and refuse to pretend that everything is fine. In 1849, Harriet Tubman made her first escape from a Maryland plantation. She was 27 years old. She'd already survived brutal beatings, forced labor, and the sale of 3 of her sisters to distant owners. Family divided. She knew exactly what the world could take from her. Her brothers started the journey with her, but turned back terrified of what would happen if they were caught. Harriet kept going alone. She crossed rivers in the dark, followed the North Star through unfamiliar woods, and relied on strangers who might have betrayed her in a moment. The cost of that decision was real. If she was caught, it meant death. What she found on the other side was not just freedom, it was a calling. Over the next 11 years, she went back 19 times, leading more than 300 people to freedom on the Underground Railroad. She'd drawn a line to protect her own dignity, and on the other side of that line, she discovered a purpose that she never could have planned. Thomas was doing the same thing years and years earlier. He was drawing a line to protect what mattered most, even when the cost was very real. Now, John places this story with careful intention in the narrative. You see, it's still the first day of the week. It's Resurrection Day, but the disciples are hiding. The same men who'd followed Jesus boldly through Galilee now cower behind locked doors, terrified that the authorities who killed their teacher will come for them next. Fear has replaced faith. The plan has fallen apart. And it's into this locked room that Jesus appears. His first words are not a rebuke, but they are a blessing. Peace be with you. He shows them his hands and his side, proof that resurrection doesn't erase the wounds, but transforms them. And the disciples move from fear to joy. But Thomas wasn't there. We don't know why. Perhaps he couldn't face the others in his grief. Perhaps he was the practical one, maybe going out to get some food while they hid. Whatever the reason, he missed the moment. When the disciples tell Thomas what happened, he draws a line. Unless I see the nail marks in his hands, put my finger in the wounds left by the nails, and put my hands into his side, I won't believe. Now, this is not casual skepticism. This is a man protecting himself from hope. He'd already believed once, and it nearly destroyed him. The cost of believing again and being wrong, well, maybe it just felt unbearable. For 8 days, Thomas lives in that tension, his friends celebrating, himself unable to join them. Then Jesus returns specifically for Thomas. Put your fingers here, look at my hands, put your hand into my side, no more disbelief, believe. The invitation is direct. Stop protecting yourself and choose trust. Thomas' response is the highest confession in all of John's gospel, my Lord and my God. His doubt became the doorway to the deepest declaration of faith that any disciple would make. Jesus doesn't scold Thomas, but offers a blessing for all of us who must believe without touching the wounds. Happy are those who don't see and yet believe. And notice what happens next here in the story. Thomas doesn't retreat back behind the locked door. His encounter with the risen Christ turns him into a witness. He goes from the disciple who wouldn't believe to the disciple who makes the boldest confession. That's what a real encounter with Jesus does. It doesn't just change what you believe. It changes what you're willing to say out loud. Thomas couldn't keep this to himself. And according to early church tradition, Thomas was the one that carried the witness all the way to India, founding communities of faith that still exist today. The man who demanded proof became one of the most courageous witnesses the church has ever known. Now, in our Methodist tradition, we understand that God is already at work in your life long before you're aware of it. We call this prevenient grace. It's the grace that goes before, or that comes before. Thomas thought he was waiting for proof, but God had been preparing this moment all along. Jesus didn't abandon Thomas during those 8 days of doubt. The risen Christ was already planning to return, already preparing to offer exactly what Thomas needed. Thomas' struggle wasn't happening outside of God's awareness. It was happening within God's patient pursuit. And this just might change how we understand our own moments of decision. You see, when we make decisions, we're not starting from scratch, trying to generate enough faith to reach out to God. God has already reached toward us. Our yes to God is always a response to an invitation that's already been extended. And when Jesus invites Thomas to touch his wounds, Jesus is also making Thomas a witness, someone who now knows from personal encounter and can testify to others. The locked doors of our heart don't keep Jesus out. He walks through them, speaks peace, and waits for us to respond. And it might be that Thomas' story meets us in at least 3 different places today. Maybe some of you have never really made a personal commitment to follow Jesus. You've attended the church maybe for years and years. You know the songs and you know the stories. But maybe somewhere along the way you've realized that you've been observing faith rather than owning it. Maybe you're not sure what would change if you said yes, and that uncertainty maybe keeps you on the edge. Thomas shows us that faith doesn't require having everything figured out. It requires being willing to encounter Jesus for yourself and respond honestly to what you find. Maybe others of you made a commitment once, but life pulled you away. Disappointment or doubt or busyness, maybe even wounds from the church itself created distance for you. Maybe you're not sure that you can go back, or even if you want to, really. Thomas wasn't in the room when Jesus first appeared. He missed the moment. But Jesus came back specifically for him. The door is still open. Coming home isn't starting over. It's continuing a journey that never really ended. And maybe some of you are active in your faith, but maybe sense an invitation to go deeper. Perhaps you've been holding something back. Maybe some area of your life that you haven't fully surrendered. Maybe some risks that you haven't been willing to take. Thomas moved from "I won't believe" to "my Lord and my God." That's not just belief, it's complete surrender. What would it mean for you to move from a partial commitment to wholehearted trust? Wherever you find yourself today, Jesus stands ready to meet you right there. And the good news is that God has already been pursuing you. During Thomas' 8 days of doubt, Jesus didn't abandon or punish him for questioning. Instead, Jesus came back specifically for Thomas. And that's the kind of God that we serve. You don't have to get yourself together before God meets you. You don't have to earn your way into belonging. God's grace is already moving in your life before you even knew to look for it, before you made your very first commitment, before you said yes to anything. And this is what changes everything about how we respond to God's invitation. Your decision to follow Jesus isn't about impressing God or proving that you're worthy. It's about recognizing what God has already set in motion and choosing to say yes to it. Whatever you've done, whatever doubts you carry, whatever plans have fallen apart around you, none of that disqualifies you from God's presence. Jesus didn't come to Thomas demanding an explanation. He came with open hands and an invitation to touch, to know, to belong. And that decision, well, it's not just a one-time event that you check off a list. It's a daily choice, renewed in small moments of trust and of commitment. And maybe some days you'll believe with certainty, and maybe other days you'll be more like Thomas, wrestling and questioning. Both of these are part of the journey. Grace meets you in every single moment of it. And here's maybe what I find most remarkable about this story. When Jesus comes back for Thomas, he didn't lower the bar. He didn't say, well, just take their word for it. He gave Thomas exactly what Thomas needed, a personal encounter specific to his doubts, tailored to his wounds. God doesn't offer us a generic faith. God meets us in the particular, in the specific questions that we carry, the specific fears that keep us behind our specific locked doors. Your fresh start won't look like anyone else's because God knows exactly what you need to take the next step. As followers of Jesus, we live out our faith through 5 promises: prayers, presence, gifts, service, and witness. And this week I want to focus on witness, sharing our faith, and inviting others into community. Thomas' story teaches us that witness doesn't mean having perfect faith. It means being honest about where we are and inviting others to encounter Jesus for themselves. So this week I want to invite you to identify one locked door in your life, maybe a place where doubt or fear or disappointment has kept you from taking a step forward. Take one step through it. That might mean a conversation that you've been avoiding, maybe a commitment that you've been circling, maybe simply telling someone what God has been doing in your life, even when it's messy and incomplete. However you respond to God's invitation today, know that you don't have to do it alone. Later in this year, we're launching something called Grace Groups, small gatherings where real questions are welcome and nobody has to pretend that they have it all figured out. Your witness, your willingness to share what God is doing in your life, whatever that might be, well, that might be the invitation that someone else needs to take their own step through that locked door. Now at our 10:15 service this morning, there's going to be 12 students that are being confirmed. Some are being baptized. Some of their families are joining the church with them. They're about to do exactly what Thomas did. Stand up and say, "My Lord and my God," in front of this community of faith. If you want to come back for that worship service, you're welcome to at 10:15. And whether you're here or not, I invite you to pray for them today. Their fresh start is just beginning. Thomas stood behind a locked door, convinced that he'd been let down for the last time. Jesus walked through it anyway. That's the God that we follow, the one who doesn't wait for us to unlock anything. Whatever door you're hiding behind today, know this: it's not locked from God's side. Your fresh start is already on its way in. Will you pray with me? God of locked rooms and open wounds, walk through our doors today. Meet our doubt with your presence. Give us courage to say yes. Amen.